The small stage at the community music fundraiser in New Hampshire trembled under warm golden lights, blending with the soft rock pulsing from nearby speakers. Kids, parents, and seniors packed into the outdoor lot, sipping sodas and waving signs in support of arts education. Behind the stage, a bright banner shimmered in the sunlight. Music for the future. Jake, a 17-year-old libertarian with a chip on his shoulder and a guitar slung like a battle axe, stepped onto the stage. His friends whooped from below. "Go, Jake!" Without missing a beat, he plugged in, flipped the amp switch, and launched into a blistering performance. The first note screamed from the speakers in a lightning-fast tapping sequence. Jagged and raw, his fingers flew across the fretboard, left hand a blur, right hand picking like a machine. The younger crowd stared, stunned. "So cool," one shouted. Jake smirked, throwing in a sweep-picking run that sounded like a windstorm turned symphony. Then he yelled into the mic, "This is free music! None of that old conservative crap." His crew erupted. "Jake's the best," someone hollered, but some older folks just folded their arms. "Fast," one grumbled, but nothing special. Then a ripple moved through the crowd. Heads turned as the back gate creaked open. Karoline Leavitt had arrived. White House press. Secretary, guest of honor. She walked in wearing a rolled-up white shirt, fitted jeans, and road-dusted leather shoes. Instantly, phones rose, kids waved, and parents whispered, "She's here for the kids." Karoline smiled warmly and nodded to the organizers. As she made her way toward a display of instruments set up for auction, Jake froze, mid-note. His eyes locked on her, brows narrowing. She paused at a black Fender Stratocaster, running her fingers along its body like a seasoned pro. An organizer grinned, handing it over. "Give it a try, Karoline." She nodded, plugged into a nearby amp, and strummed a low, clean note. The tone was steady and unhurried, drawing a few respectful nods from the crowd. Jake sneered. "Look at this MAGA chick," he muttered to his friends. "Bet she talks big, plays nothing." They laughed. "She's probably gonna play some country crap to flex on Twitter." His voice wasn't as quiet as he thought. Several heads turned. Karoline stopped strumming. She glanced up, cool and unbothered, like she was back in the press room, fielding hostile questions. She plucked another sharp note. A kid whispered, "She can actually play." Jake stepped to the edge of the stage, pointing. "Hey, Leavitt, think you're better than me?" The soft rock faded as the crowd quieted, tension crackling. Jake shouted again, "I challenge you to a guitar duel. Right here, right now." "UN press secretary," his friends roared. "Take her down, Jake." Phones shot up. Flashes flickered like lightning. Karoline didn't flinch. She gave a faint, knowing smile, half dismissive, half amused. A general facing a rookie on the battlefield. "Guitar duel?" she echoed, voice low but clear. "Sure." She stepped onto the stage. The crowd erupted. An older woman leaned to her friend. "That loudmouth, kids!" In over his head. "Karoline doesn't mess around." Jake smirked. "You're toast, Leavitt. You won't last a minute." He cranked his amp, a thick buzz rolling out like thunder. Karoline adjusted her volume knob, calm and composed. Jake turned to the crowd. "Who wants to see me crush this? MAGA chick?" More cheers. Kids yelled. Adults folded arms watching. A man muttered, "He's cocky." "But Karoline's no rookie." She just smiled. "Just wait." Slinging the guitar strap over her shoulder, Karoline stood tall, her fingers curled lightly around the neck of the Strat. "You start," she said, her voice steady, inviting. The crowd hushed, breathless. Her amp hummed low, more warning than sound. Jake jutted his chin. "This is freedom versus conservatism, and I'm going to win." He hit a chord. The duel had begun. Parents and seniors clustered around the outdoor space, eyes locked on Jake as he stood center stage, legs apart, electric guitar strap tight across his chest. His fiery gaze scanned the crowd, then locked. On to Karoline Leavitt. "Watch this, Leavitt," he shouted, voice booming over the fading soft rock. "This is real music. You've got no shot." His friends roared from below. "Take her down, Jake." Smirking, he raised his hand and attacked the strings like a storm. From the first note, Jake erupted. A barrage of hammer-ons and pull-offs tore through the air, fused with roaring distortion. His left hand raced across the fretboard like a machine. His right hand picked without mercy. The younger crowd gasped. "Jake's insane!" Someone yelled. Jake sneered, slamming into a two-handed tapping run. Fingers hammered the high frets, unleashing a shrill, siren-like scream that filled the outdoor lot and drowned out the breeze rustling through the nearby field. He didn't pause. With a quick flick of his wrist, he shifted into sweep picking, fingers brushing the strings like wind through grass, unleashing a fluid yet ferocious cascade of notes. His friends clapped wildly. "Leavitt can't keep up!" A long-haired teen shouted. Jake nodded to the beat, eyes roaming the crowd as if he were headlining a stadium, not a local fundraiser. He grimaced, tilted his head, stuck out his tongue, channeling full-on rock god energy. A girl filmed him, jaw dropped. "He's nuts!" "Mid-solo!" Jake bellowed. "Top that, MAGA!" He glanced at Karoline, expecting a flinch. But she stood, calmly, hand resting on the neck of her fender, eyes steady, unmoved. She nodded slightly, as if waiting for him to finish his tantrum. Jake grinned to himself. "She's toast." He cranked the speed, fingers blurred, sweat rolled down his temple. Another frantic tapping run exploded. Then he yanked the whammy bar. His guitar shrieked like tires skidding on pavement. The sound pierced the air. Some seniors winced, hands over ears. The crowd's reaction was split. His crew cheered wildly. A few kids bounced with excitement. But the older folks nodded politely. Unimpressed, a middle-aged man leaned in. "Fast but exhausting." His wife nodded. "All flash, no soul." Jake didn't notice. He was lost in his own world where speed was king. And he was untouchable. With one final bend, he ripped the whammy bar again, letting the notes scream and fade. The amp buzzed low as he stepped back, arms crossed, triumphant. "That's freedom's music," he shouted. "Fast, strong, unbeatable. Can you do that, Leavitt?" His friends laughed. "She's shaking!" Jake turned to Karoline, daring her to back down. She didn't move, just gave a faint, cool smile, sharp as a blade. Then she stepped forward. Her leather shoes clicked softly on the stage, enough to quiet the crowd. She adjusted her amp's volume. Just a subtle buzz under the tension. "Real music, huh?" she said, voice low but razor-clear, cutting through the murmurs. "My turn." She tightened the strap over her shoulder, planted her feet, fingers resting on the neck. The crowd leaned in, phones rose higher, flashes blinking like stars. Jake kept smirking, but a flicker of doubt cracked through the confidence. No warm-up, no theatrics. Karoline struck the first note. A deep, thunderous tone filled the air, rich and alive, like the sound of distant storms. Some seniors nodded instinctively, feeling it in their chests. Then she launched into a classic rock riff. Not frantic like Jake's, but sharp, deliberate, full of swagger. "Sweet Child O' Mine" echoed through her fingers. The crowd lit up. Her notes weren't blurred. They were precise, clean, alive. Her guitar didn't scream. It sang. She flowed into a solo, bending strings with finesse, weaving notes that soared instead of shrieked. Her right hand picked each tone with surgical control. There was no overacting, just confidence, clarity, and soul. The crowd shifted. A girl shouted, "Karoline rocks!" A man whispered to his wife, "Now that's music!" Phones popped up everywhere. Flashes blazed. Karoline built the solo toward a climax, quick bursts of speed, but never messy. Each note hit like a headline, clear, powerful, impossible to ignore. She tilted her head, nudged the whammy bar. Just a touch. The sound swelled, sweeping across the field like a wave. Kids bobbed their heads. Parents nodded to the beat. Near the back, an organizer whispered, "She's shutting him down." His colleague nodded. Knew it. Karoline's the real deal. Jake stood frozen, arms still crossed, but his smirk was gone. Jake stepped back, arms crossed, but his smug grin faltered. He muttered. Just luck. Too low for his friends to hear. But deep down, he felt it. It wasn't her speed. It wasn't flash. It was something far more dangerous. Her certainty. She didn't need to prove anything. She knew she had already won. His crew quieted. The long-haired kid shrugged. Hey. It was decent. He offered, but the conviction had drained from his voice. He didn't meet Jake's eyes. Karoline struck her final note, a low, resonant tone that hung in the air like smoke. Then she muted the strings with her palm. Silence. The crowd erupted. Thunderous applause, whistles, cheers. An older man shouted, "Karoline's amazing!" A young girl turned to her friend, eyes wide. "She just smoked him!" Phones kept rolling. Flashes popped like fireworks. Karoline stood tall, hands relaxed on her guitar, gaze sweeping the crowd before settling on Jake. "How's that, kid?" she said, her voice calm but edged, echoing his earlier taunt with surgical precision. The crowd laughed. A few more claps. Rose. Eyes turned to Jake. He swallowed hard, hands curling tighter, trying to hold onto the mask. "Fine, you're decent." He shouted over the crowd, louder than needed. "But that was just a warm-up. I'll show you real domination." His friends cheered reflexively. "Yeah, Jake, crush her!" But some adults shook their heads. "Clueless," an older woman whispered. Karoline didn't reply. She just smiled, faintly, calm, steady. Her hand rested lightly on the neck of her guitar again, signaling, "Your move." Jake's jaw tensed. He lifted his guitar, eyes blazing. He couldn't lose. Not to her. Not with the doubt now buzzing through the crowd. He took a breath, switched the amp back on. The electric hum rose like static tension. He shot Karoline a glare, trying to bury the fear beneath fire. She just got lucky, he told himself. Speed's everything, and I'll prove it. Jake slung his strap over his shoulder. Stood, tall, fingers trembled slightly. "This is real music!" he roared, voice echoing. The crowd quieted again, eyes locked on him. Phones went up. Everyone waited. Karoline stood still, one hand on the fender's neck, calm, unshaken. Jake launched in. A storm of lightning-fast notes burst out. Hammer-ons, pull-offs, faster than his first round. The amp screamed. His fingers flew. "Watch this," he shouted, eyes scanning the crowd, hungry for awe. He added another tapping run. But a note slipped. Barely off. But enough. Some seniors frowned. Jake pushed harder, diving into sweep-picking, trying to claw back dominance. But the pressure cracked him. A second note rang out wrong. A buzzing, sour twist. His friends still clapped. "Sick, bro!" But their tone had changed. Lighter. Uncertain. In the crowd, a middle-aged man leaned to his wife. "Fast but messy." She nodded. Nowhere near Karoline. Jake didn't hear the words, but he felt the shift. The energy was gone. He wasn't the headliner anymore. He gritted his teeth. Sweat soaked his Resist t-shirt. "I have to win," he thought, panic rising. He looked at Karoline, still calm, still, watching. Her ease drove him crazy. "You're outmatched," he shouted, and threw himself into a brutal solo, alternate picking, tapping, everything at once. But the speed drowned him. A third note went off, then a bend too far. His guitar squealed like skidding tires. The crowd froze. Silence. A woman near the back muttered, "Just throwing notes around." Jake tried to recover, yanked the whammy bar, let it wail. But it didn't soar this time. It just screeched, disjointed, harsh. He blinked against the sweat stinging his eyes. launched into another sweep. But his fingers slipped. Buzz, his friends, stopped clapping. The long-haired kid mumbled, "Hey, it's okay." His voice died. Jake panted, eyes scanning for cheers. All he saw were polite nods, blank stares. "There!" he shouted, voice cracking. He yanked the whammy bar again. "Let" it squeal. The note died ugly. The amp buzzed low. He stepped back, hands shaking. Scattered claps, no cheers. A girl whispered to her friend, "Fast, but all over the place." An older man nodded. Karoline did way better. Jake heard it, and this time it hit. His chest tightened for the first time. He felt defeat. He turned to Karoline, forcing a grin. "Well, Leavitt, think you can top that?" His voice was loud, but it wavered. His friend said nothing, avoided his eyes. Karoline didn't blink. Her voice cut through the air. Low, even. "Let me show you what music really is." She stepped forward, adjusted her amp. The low hum rose like a warning. Phones lifted. Flashes popped. No theatrics. No warm-up. She struck the first note. A bold, thunderous tone exploded from the amp. Deep, raw, alive. The stage trembled. The crowd froze. Seniors nodded, eyes wide. They felt it. Something real was happening. Then she launched, straight into Back in Black. No speed for speed's sake, just tight, electric rhythm. Every note slammed with weight. Her fingers moved, not frantic, but exact, confident. Each tone pulsed like a heartbeat. Jake stood motionless, hands limp on his guitar. Karoline flowed into the solo, bent the strings just right, crafted something emotional, soulful, not just sound, story. Every note carried her past, the press room battles, the long nights, the fire behind her calm. The crowd felt it. A girl shouted, "Karoline's unreal," a man muttered to his wife. "That's from the heart." She climbed to the climax, quick flurry of notes, not to boast. To make a point, each one clear, powerful. Like every press briefing she'd ever commanded, she nudged the whammy bar. Just enough. The guitar wailed, sharp, perfect, emotional. The sound swept across the lot. Kids bounced. Parents nodded. An organizer leaned to his colleague. "She just knocked him out." The reply, Karoline Leavitt's #1. Jake swallowed. Hands trembled, eyes fixed on her. He wanted to argue, to scream, but the music had done it for her. She didn't outplay him with speed. She outclassed him. The crowd erupted again, louder than ever. "Karoline's the champ!" Someone shouted. She ended with a low, bold note. "Let it hang." Then muted it with, "Grace." Silence fell. Then, applause like thunder, whistles, cheers, roars. "She's a legend," a kid screamed, hopping near the stage. Jake stood frozen, jaw slack, hands limp. What just happened? He thought. Karoline turned to him. "Want to keep going?" she asked, voice calm, a hint of bite underneath. The crowd laughed, clapped. Harder. Jake searched for a comeback. Any words? None came. His friend stayed silent. The long-haired kid muttered, She's good." Then turned away, ashamed. Karoline said nothing more. She gave the crowd a small nod, eyes cold, steady. The applause surged again, wave after wave. A man whispered, "She's not just a talker. She plays better too." His wife laughed. "That kid's out of moves." Jake stood there, breathing hard, eyes hollow. He hadn't just lost a duel, he'd lost everything. To Karoline Leavitt, the conservative he used to mock. And now, she was untouchable. The weight of failure sat on Jake like a stone he couldn't lift. Around him, the crowd kept cheering, phones raised, cameras flashing in bursts of white. "Karoline Leavitt, star of the night!" an organizer called out. Jake stood frozen, head bowed, gripping his guitar like it was the only thing anchoring him. He didn't have words. He didn't have moves. All he had was the gut-deep knowledge that this time, he'd been dead wrong, and Karoline had proved it. She stood center stage, tall and composed, hands relaxed at her sides, Fender Stratocaster slung over her shoulder. Her icy gaze swept the crowd, then landed on him. She stepped closer, her leather shoes tapping lightly, on the floor, sharp enough to snap him out of his daze. The noise dulled. The crowd leaned in, waiting. Her eyes weren't smug. No arrogance, no mockery. Just the same steel calm she likely wore every day in the White House briefing room. "You can hate my views," she said, voice low but cutting through the murmur like a scalpel. "You can hate me for being a conservative, but music doesn't need politics. It needs heart." Jake swallowed hard, clutching his guitar tighter. His eyes flicked to hers, then away. "You play fast," she continued. "But do you feel it?" Her words didn't stab. They cut. Clean. Honest. He opened his mouth to argue, to defend. Nothing came out, because deep down, he knew. She was right. All the speed, the technique, the flash, everything he'd ever flaunted, suddenly felt empty next to her raw, grounded performance. The silence thickened. Dozens of eyes watched him, waiting. "She didn't just win," a man whispered to his wife. "She taught him something," she replied. "Hope the kid gets it." Karoline tilted her head, eyes never leaving his. "I don't play guitar to show off," she said. Her voice was steady, heavy with lived truth. "I play to let go after 14-hour days in the White House, after sleepless nights with my toddler, after the press comes for me from every side. Music's how I find myself again. What do you play for?" Jake stared at the floor. His hands shook. He'd never thought about it, not really. He played to prove, to flex, to claim he was freer, louder, more rebellious. But now, under her gaze, all that seemed childish. "You've got talent," she said, softer now. "But if all you chase is speed, you'll never find real music. Let your heart lead, not your pride." Jake looked up. For the first time, there was no challenge in his eyes, only recognition. Her words didn't feel like a takedown. They felt like advice, honest, direct, the same way she took questions from a hostile press corps. Around them, the crowd stirred again. "She's right," someone murmured. "Karoline's not just good," a girl whispered to her friend. "She can teach." Jake took a breath, then another. Still gripping his guitar, he cleared his throat. "Can I try again?" he asked, voice low, the edge of ego gone. The crowd stirred, soft applause, scattered claps. "He's turning around," someone said. Karoline smiled for the first time that night. It was small, real. "Play," she said. "But this time, let your heart lead." Jake bowed his head, took a breath, then lifted his guitar again. He flipped on the amp. A soft hum filled the stage. No more overdrive, no wall of distortion, just stillness. He placed his fingers on the strings, slow, careful, and plucked the first note. It rang out, gentle, warm, real. No flash, no frantic shredding, just feeling. His fingers moved, not to impress, but to express. A simple sequence flowed from the fretboard. Imperfect, maybe, but honest. For the first time, Jake played. From the heart. The crowd didn't roar, but a few clapped softly, meaningfully. He's learning, someone said. Karoline changed him. Jake finished, then looked up. His eyes found hers again, no longer defiant. Now, grateful. She nodded. Her ice melted just enough. Better, she said quietly. But you've got more to learn. She turned and stepped off the stage. The applause followed her. Not just for the performance, but for the lesson. Jake stood alone, hand on his guitar's neck, watching her go. He hadn't won. But something had shifted. This wasn't defeat, it was a beginning. The crowd continued, clapping. But he didn't feel pressure anymore. Only one question lingered in his mind, pulsing louder than any amp. What do I play for? And finally, he wanted to find the answer. His fingers brushed the strings, plucking a low, simple note. It rang out, slow, unhurried, so unlike the frantic shredding he once prided himself on. Below the stage, his friends had slipped away quietly. No more cheers, no jabs. Just silence, save for a few lingering spectators who watched with curious, almost encouraging eyes. An older man nodded thoughtfully. He's starting to get it. Jake said nothing. He just stood there, hand resting on his guitar, defeat dissolving into something new. Not pride, but curiosity. As Karoline Leavitt left the stage, the fundraiser audience flooded Twitter and TikTok. Karoline KO's arrogant kid. One tweet, read, paired with a video of her solo, ferocious and flawless. On TikTok, a side-by-side clip went viral. Jake's sloppy riff next to Karoline's soaring performance, captioned, "When you challenge the wrong person." Sitting in the corner backstage, Jake scrolled through the storm. He's too full of himself. Karoline's a legend. The public pressure hit hard, but it wasn't what stung. It was her words that stayed with him, looping in his head. Not to shame, but to steady him. By the next morning, the story had broken, out of New Hampshire and gone national. Millions of views. Headlines blared, "Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt schools, cocky guitarist." Karoline V's Jake trended across platforms. That kid's ego got wrecked. Deserved it. Karoline's Back in Black was fire. Cable news jumped in. Fox, CNN, all of them. Karoline Leavitt proves talent beyond politics. Jake sat, on the edge of his bed, headphones on, guitar in his lap. No more lightning-fast metal solos. This time, he was listening. Really listening. Stairway to Heaven floated through his headphones. Karoline had suggested it before she left. He didn't take her seriously then. Now, Jimmy Page's delicate arpeggios felt like scripture. Jake closed his eyes, fingers slowly tracing the neck of the guitar, trying to mimic the softness, the soul. He paused, missed a note, tried again. A faint smile curled on his lips, not smug, sincere. A smile of discovery. He set the headphones down and stared at his guitar. "She's right," he whispered, voice low, steady. "It's not speed, it's heart." He plucked a short sequence, letting the notes breathe, feeling every vibration. No rush, no flash. For the first time, he was playing to feel, to understand. He remembered her question. What do you play for? Before, he'd played to prove something, to flex, to challenge her conservatism, to show that freedom meant playing, wild and loud. But now, he saw it wasn't a fight. Music wasn't about ego. It was about connection. He stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the starry night. He thought of Karoline. Not as the MAGA chick he'd once mocked, But as someone who'd opened a door he didn't know existed, she hadn't just beaten him. She'd made him rethink himself. Jake closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and turned back for his guitar. He sat down and played a short piece, slow, flowing, tender. Like an unspoken thank you. Not perfect, but real. He set the guitar down, smiling. Not for victory, but for finally understanding what he wanted to chase. The final note hung in the air, soft as a promise. He'd learned to play from the heart, like Karoline did, and this time, he'd do it right. Epilogue, the story of a liberal guitarist challenging Karoline Leavitt to a battle and getting humbled, resonates deeply in today's divided America. It's more than a clash of chords. It reflects the political and generational rifts cutting through the country. Jake, in his Resist t-shirt and fierce belief that free music should topple old-school conservatism, embodies a piece of modern youth, confident, often arrogant, quick to dismiss. Karoline, the youngest White House press secretary, faced mockery and stereotyping. But she didn't fire back with spite. She answered with grace, skill, and soul. Their duel at a New Hampshire fundraiser became a metaphor. Freedom versus tradition, pride versus wisdom, and ultimately, division versus connection. Jake's loss was public, painful, viral, but it was also necessary, because it turned a clash into a turning point. Her line, "Music doesn't need politics, it needs heart," became more than a rebuttal. It became a lesson, one Jake embraced when he went home and played Stairway to Heaven, not to impress, but to feel. In a country where labels, liberal, conservative, too often define us, this story offers a different path. Listen to your rival. Learn from them. Jake did, and it changed him. Thanks for joining Jake and Karoline on their journey to rediscover music's heart. Subscribe for more stories of breaking through bias and finding something better on the other side.